Behind the RedLine, Episode 96, Heaven's Gate, Tech, Purity, and Voluntary Extinction. United States, 1970s to 1997. There was no violence in the final hours. No panic, no resistance, no visible fear. Inside a rented mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California, dozens of adults lay quietly on their beds. Their bodies were arranged with care. Their clothing was identical. Their faces were covered, as if sleep itself needed privacy. Each person believed the same thing, that the human body was only a temporary container, that Earth was about to be recycled, and that a spacecraft, hidden behind a passing comet, was waiting to take them somewhere higher. This was not chaos. It was order. And that is what makes Heaven's Gate so disturbing. The story begins decades earlier, long before the final scene was imaginable. At the center were two people who, on their own, were unremarkable, and together, profoundly destabilizing. Marshall Applewhite was a former music professor, deeply sensitive, increasingly unstable, and consumed by questions of identity and purpose. He struggled with authority, sexuality, and a sense that he did not belong in the world as it existed. Bonnie Nettles was a nurse with a fascination for astrology, metaphysics, and cosmic meaning. Where Applewhite was fragile and searching, Nettles was confident, interpretive, and absolute. Together, they constructed a belief system that fused Christianity, science fiction, UFO mythology, and New Age cosmology into something that felt coherent, even logical, to those who encountered it at the right moment in their lives. They believed they were not human at all. They believed they were extraterrestrial beings inhabiting human bodies, sent to prepare others for a coming transformation. They called themselves T and Do. Heaven's Gate revolved around one foundational idea. The human body was not the self. Members were taught that the body was merely a vehicle, a biological shell that could be discarded once it had served its purpose. Identity, gender, sexuality, family, and emotion were described as attachments that tethered the soul to Earth. To ascend, one had to detach. This detachment did not arrive suddenly. It was introduced gradually, framed as discipline rather than loss. Members were encouraged to eliminate preference, suppress desire, and replace instinct with obedience. Gender was described as contamination, sexuality as regression, romantic attachment as failure. For some members, this belief was taken to its most extreme conclusion. Several men voluntarily underwent castration, convinced that eliminating sexual impulse was necessary to evolve beyond the human condition. There was no hysteria in these decisions, only certainty. Heaven's Gate did not reject technology. It embraced it. Members learned computer skills, built websites, and operated a legitimate web design business. They lived quietly, moved often, and avoided attention. There were no compounds, no armed guards, no visible barricades between them and the outside world. Technology reinforced their theology. Advanced beings, they believed, would naturally use advanced tools. The rise of digital communication felt like proof that humanity was approaching a threshold, one where physical bodies were becoming obsolete. This is part of why Heaven's Gate went unnoticed for so long. It didn't look backward. It didn't look primitive. It looked clean, rational, and future-oriented. Daily life inside Heaven's Gate was tightly controlled, though rarely framed as punishment. Members dressed alike, ate the same meals, spoke using the same phrasing. Individual expression dissolved slowly, replaced by group language and shared cadence. Even facial expressions softened into neutrality. Names were abandoned. Personal history was minimized. Doubt was reframed as human interference. What remained was a collective identity that felt calm, disciplined, and strangely peaceful. Freedom, members were told, came from eliminating choice. In 1985, Bonnie Nettles died of cancer. For many cults, the death of a founder is fatal. For Heaven's Gate, it became a turning point. Applewhite reinterpreted her death not as failure, but as confirmation. Nettles, he claimed, had completed her mission and moved on to the next level without needing her physical body to ascend. This reframing quietly changed everything. If the soul could leave without bodily transformation, then the body truly was disposable. From this point forward, Applewhite stood alone, both as leader and as the sole interpreter of doctrine. His authority became absolute, and the group's belief system narrowed, hardened, and simplified. In 1997, the Hale-Bopp comet passed close to Earth. Online rumors circulated that a spacecraft was trailing behind it. To most people, this was fringe speculation. To Heaven's Gate, it was confirmation. The comet was no longer just a sign. It was a deadline.
Applewhite taught that Earth was about to be recycled, its human population cleared to make way for something new. Those who failed to leave would be erased. Those who followed would survive.
Staying was framed as fear, leaving as courage, death as transition. Members recorded farewell videos in the days leading up to the end. They spoke calmly, evenly, and without visible distress. Many expressed gratitude, some smiled. None appeared coerced in the traditional sense, because coercion had already done its work years earlier. The language was uniform. Individual doubt did not surface, because it had been trained out of them through repetition, discipline, and the steady erosion of personal identity. What remained was agreement. Over several days in March 1997, 39 members of Heaven's Gate died by suicide. They consumed a lethal combination of drugs and alcohol, lying down in small groups, covering their faces after ingestion. Each wore identical black clothing and a pair of Nike sneakers. On their arms were patches identifying them as part of the away team. The scene was methodical, almost ceremonial. There was no rush. When the bodies were discovered, public reaction veered toward shock. and then mockery. Media coverage often focused on the strangeness of the beliefs, the matching outfits, the sneakers. Heaven's Gate became a cultural punchline, but ridicule missed the truth. These were not people driven by chaos or hysteria. Many were intelligent, skilled, and deeply committed to a belief system that gave their lives meaning. They did not die because they were foolish. They died because certainty replaced survival. Heaven's Gate endures as one of the most unsettling cults in modern history because it violates our expectations. There was no rage, no violence against outsiders, no visible collapse, just agreement. It demonstrates how belief does not need force to become fatal. Only coherence, repetition, and isolation from contradiction. Heaven's Gate did not end in terror. It ended in calm consensus. Behind the Red Line exists to examine the moments when belief becomes more real than the body, and when leaving feels more reasonable than staying. Because the most dangerous cults do not force people to die. They convince them it's the only logical way forward.